So everybody, welcome to Real Talk, Real Immigration podcast, where my name is Belinda Arroyo. I'm an immigration attorney, and I've been practicing for about 17 years now, solely in the area of immigration law. I am board certified in the state of Texas and have just been in the thick of things for many years. And so we wanted to start this podcast to kind of talk about the things we as immigration lawyers talk about that we see and just kind of straight from the source. So, and then.
Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica Ceja. I have been practicing here with Belinda for 3 years, and I actually started with her while I was in law school. So I've been in the immigration field for about 6 years.
So we just kind of want to talk, when I say real talk, real immigration, like we just want to talk about like what's really going on without all the filters of liberal or conservative, but like what's really going on. So one of the things that I just wanted to like kind of hit on, and I feel like the average American doesn't know, is that we have not seen significant immigration law changes since President Clinton. Yeah, that President Clinton. A long time ago. So September 30th, 1996, he signed something that we as immigration lawyers call IRA. And it was a new set of immigration laws. It was actually, I would say, a very tough set of immigration laws. Some of the consequences of what he signed into law, we're still seeing American families dealing with. And we can talk about that at a later time. But, but how old were you in 1996?
In 1996, I was only 3 years old.
Yeah. So some of you may have not even been born, or some of you were really young. So I just wanted to like give some context of like how much our world has changed since 1996, and yet Congress and all the presidents who have come through since then and our current have still been unable to do any significant change to immigration law. So I wanted to just give y'all some fun facts and some context. So we kind of talked about this before. We're from Dallas.
Yes, and I'm a huge Cowboys fan.
So I told Beto one of the fun facts was that in 1996, guess who were the Super Bowl champs?
The Dallas Cowboys. But we haven't had any since then, unfortunately.
So, that's a fun fact, 1996. The NBA champions were
The Chicago Bulls.
That's a fun fact. So that's been a really long time. So I also looked up some really other fun facts for those of you who are younger or who remember, or if you were just a little bit younger. I was a teenager in that time. So in 1996, there was no Google. I know, it's crazy, right? No Facebook, no Twitter. Thank you, Jesus. No YouTube, no LinkedIn, no Pinterest, no Tumblr. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people did, right? Like, what did we do?
What did we do?
So in January of 1986, there only existed 100,000 websites. Compared to today, there's 162 million over probably at this point websites. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, how did Google
I mean,
not exist?
I remember that because I'm much older than Beto, but I do remember like the first time, the internet came online and we had to like plug into our phone line. And then like if you were on the internet, it was very slow, but it did work. We had chat rooms, kind of creepy now. And if you were using the internet, you could also not be using your phone at the time, which at the time we were like dependent on landlines, right? So we say all this to just like point out how crazy it is that we've gone this long and the world has changed so much, and yet we still have a Congress, a divided Congress that refuses to act. And I say refuses because that's their choice, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be doing what they're supposed to do, whether they agree totally with each other or not, right? And we all disagree about different things in immigration, but uh, it is pretty crazy. It is pretty crazy. So, all of that to say, we think that it's important that everybody know that the reason our laws aren't working is because they're just too old, right? Like, nobody would think to, I mean, I'm sitting here on a laptop with my cell phone, which we also did not have a lot of in 1996. Like, to think that we expect these laws to still work today is just absolutely crazy. So, that gives you some context of where we are with immigration at this point in time, what has gotten us to where we are, which is we have a very broken system. I think at this point, if you're liberal, if you're conservative, like everybody can agree, right?
Yes, everybody should agree, at least that we need some type of change or updates to our immigration laws.
Right. So one of the topics we wanted to cover, which is going on here in Texas specifically, but I think is starting to like really be felt in different states, is the states now doing what the federal government has failed to do, which is make some immigration laws. And we don't always agree with those things that are happening in the states, but one of the states that I guess was at the forefront was Texas and creating SB 4. Right. So it basically was like it was intended to create a state crime for people entering the border through Texas, right? But it went a lot further than just criminalizing entry into Texas illegally from the Texas border. It gave power to local judges, magistrates to also order people deported, and so it created a lot of fear within Texas communities, because whether we like it or not, people, like, we do have a lot of undocumented immigrants living in the country, and whether we like it or not, it's been many years, and some of these people have children and grandchildren and spouses, and because of our outdated immigration laws, and back to that, some of them don't have a viable way of getting their residency, even though, they are a significant part of U.S. citizen families. And so SB 4, has created a lot of fear, but it's also created a lot of, I think, media around, what are we doing with immigration, right? And so the states have begun to try to legislate where the federal government has been unable to legislate, or make significant changes to our immigration laws. So, um, yeah, I mean, what do you think about what Texas did and SB 4, or what were our clients saying about
Well,
things?
I mean, I just clearly remember that we had several clients call in fear, of course, of what's going to happen. Do they need to prepare for anything? Um, and just overall concern about what's going to happen in the state of Texas. And so I know that as of now, we are the Fifth Circuit has it on hold, and so we're not sure when there will be a decision. But I mean, all we could tell our clients is to continue to follow the law, and we would update them with any um, changes or anything that's set in stone once there is a decision. And I even heard of, some people who actually decided to move out of the state of Texas because they were so afraid of it. Um, and so it's just um, it's just been a concern for the immigrant community for sure.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I've been saying just on the record about it is from the very beginning, I'm not really sure that Texas was really serious about this becoming a law. I really think that it was either very poorly written, which some people won't like that, especially the people who wrote it, or they really never seriously thought it was going to pass constitutional muster, just because you really can't give power to deport people to, state officials or state, magistrates who actually don't know the immigration law. Immigration law is actually very complex, and so you could order somebody deported or do things which you may not know that you're doing. So I always thought it was a very badly written law. I think had they really wanted it to like come through, then they could have written it better. Florida did a lot of stuff. I think even Louisiana has written laws that didn't include some of the powers that Texas included. And so I'm not really sure if this was like a smoke and mirrors. I have my suspicions that it was more smoke and mirrors. Like they didn't, I mean, Texas is very reliant on immigrant labor. We have a lot of farms, we have a lot of agriculture. A lot of them are relying on immigrant labor, and we're not talking about legal immigrant labor. And so I think that there was a lot more of and maybe this is just like my conspiracy theorist person, but hey, it is a podcast. But personally, I do feel like maybe there was some smoke and mirrors. Like, let's portray this, but let's also write it in a way that we kind of think the Constitution, I mean, is not going to allow it to be, because it was just really badly written.
and
So
and I feel like it also might have been created to create fear in those who were attempting to continue to enter the United States.
yeah, I mean, that's what I mean by smoke and mirror. Like it created like this, hey, there's smoke here, don't come in. We're doing something, but in all reality, like it's really a messaging thing. And I think it worked to a certain extent. Not completely, because you know, Texas is a big state and we have a big border. So but yeah, I mean that. So SB4 remains kind of like on the back burner for now, but we do see other states, trying to follow the lead of Texas. I don't know. The Supreme Court's going to have to speak to this issue in the coming years. I don't know. If the federal government, and this means both Republicans and Democrats, you can sit here and blame each other, but the reality is, if they are unwilling to come together, we're never going to have any significant change. And we do need significant change.
I
mean,
agree.
the Cowboys need significant change so that they can win another Super Bowl, and so does immigration law.
Yes,
I mean, a lot's changed and nothing's changed, right? Since 1996. So
unfortunately.
sorry, Cowboys, but I mean, it just happened to be the year. We just happened to be in Texas. Just happened to work out. You're just, So, okay. So one of the things, we weren't really planning on talking about this, but there are rumors swirling, and I think that we have some really good um, sources saying that the Biden administration this week is going to make some significant announcements. So,
Yes, so some of the rumors are that the Biden administration is going to use executive power to try to create a parole in place um, for spouses of U.S. citizens. That's what I've heard. Spouses, I've also kind of heard that it might include immediate relatives, which I'm not sure it's going to include all immediate relatives because that would be significant. I mean, any type of change at this point would be huge for our immigrant community, especially because a lot of U.S. citizen spouses that entered illegally do have to do something called the consular process, which takes, um, which can take up to, at this point, probably I would say like 6 years, whenever we take into account a waiver that they have to apply for. So I think it would be significant, but I mean, we're just waiting and seeing what actually happens. And so,
so let's kind of give a little bit of context. What is parole in place? So parole in place is basically, it's a form. Parole is another word or it's used in context of admission to the United States. So it basically would give people a fictional legal entry into the United States, which would allow the spouses of U.S. citizens, or if they end up opening up to immediate relatives. And what's an immediate relative? It's really not that broad. It's spouses of U.S. citizens and children of U.S. citizens that are under 21 and parents of U.S. citizens if the U.S. citizen is over 21. So basically, what you would consider immediate is somebody that you would be really close to you, right? So like your minor child, your spouse, or your older parent, right? So these are people who are very close to the fabric of our country, which are U.S. citizens, right? And so there is some legal basis and some precedent for the president to do this because we have already been doing this in a very limited context in for the spouses and the immediate relatives of military members. And I think we can all agree that nobody would want that to go away, right? Like it is right for us to provide this benefit for the spouses and the children or the parents of military members, right? So this is something we've already been doing in a limited context to make the immigration process easier for those people who serve our country or who have served our country, right? And so this has already been going on for a while. And it does provide significant benefit, right? For them. You have to still already be like related to somebody who can get you your residency. So this is not like a free for all, right? And I think like the average person doesn't realize like when you're talking about the spouses of US citizens, the parents of US citizens, right? Like these are people who are ingrained in our society, like their children would be affected, they're US citizens. Their spouses would be affected, they're US citizens. And so we're not talking about just like a general immigration law. We're talking about stuff that like affects US citizens, right? And so that matters. And so that announcement, if made, will have a significant impact for those people who are US citizens who want to do something for their family members. Um, the other thing that I think it's important for people to know is like one of the things that this president has done already is that under this CBP1 app that was created, I mean they're paroling in, I believe the number's like 30,000 people a month, right? So they're granting parole to people who have no status in this country and no family, a lot of them no family members in this country who can eventually lead them to residency. We're granting them parole, and obviously, there's reasons that the administration is giving, like, oh, we're trying to stop illegal immigration, we're trying to encourage people to use this app or whatever. And we can get into that in another podcast. But the reality is that, before people, and they tried to stop the use of that. And so that wasn't stopped, but so we'll see. I think this announcement is going to be like a great hurrah, right? I think it should have been done sooner. No offense,
Yes.
Biden, but
Not just during election time.
right. But we'll take it. But I and as I've started to tell people about this announcement, I think it is going to happen. There's no question it's going to happen. My fear is that, like everything else, we get this announcement and then we get litigation, right? And so, my hope is that by people understanding what this really is, the fact that the administration is already doing it on a widespread basis without really any real, relief on the other side of that, I would think, it would be more fair and it would be more helpful if we were able to do this for the spouses of U.S. citizens, right? And I think even for, the parents of U.S. citizens. Um, so yeah, that would be significant.
Yes, I'm hoping for it as well. I'm just looking forward to see who's all included because it's definitely going to change lives, and change, well, I guess some things for in the immigration world. But it all depends on what happens. And I mean, we have to also expect that there may be judges who are going to try to block it. Of course, like you said, some litigation can go on, which would put it on hold for some time. So we just have to see what happens.
Well, I think that what we're seeing, which is I think important for people to know, is unfortunately, you know, and we can blame both sides. I think it's fair to say this might have started with the Democrats under Trump, but the idea that we're constantly litigating everything now, like nothing can happen without there being a lawsuit and litigation. And I mean, the DACA program is still in limbo to this day. It's been years that we can't get a final answer on this. So unfortunately, we've also become a very litigation heavy country, which doesn't allow us also to move policies forward that are important. And unfortunately, we are in an election year. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit, right? Like we're talking about elections. Obviously, we're not dumb. We know it's an election year. We know, it's what we're in June, the election's in November, and Biden's going to announce this. I mean, we're not dumb about why it's being done. Um, and so, moving forward, how does a Trump administration versus a Biden administration look to us and look for us in terms of immigration?
So that's actually, I guess, for me at least, a complex discussion. When I first started, well, here um, at Belinda's office, it was around 2018, I believe. And so it was around the time that Trump was still in office. And at that time, I was just a law clerk. And so when I actually started practicing was during the Biden administration. So I actually did get a chance to see the differences between um, the administrations and how things were handled. So I clearly remember under the Trump administration, things were a lot more difficult. I guess there was a lot. It was more difficult to,
Get agreements.
yes, I guess, to
Yeah.
get agreements with the government attorneys, and under the Biden administration, they have been able, I mean, they have been more willing to work with us when there is relief outside of court. Um, that's a little more, I guess, things that we can discuss later on in the future. But it definitely changes. So the fact that things can actually go back to a Trump administration, it's going to be very interesting for us immigration attorneys because everything changes when the administration changes. So it does take a little while to see the changes, but they definitely do, and it's, I don't know what if I'm ready for another Trump administration. It We need a lot of work.
Well, I mean, I'll say that I'm done with the repeats. I'm done with the Trump repeat. I'm done with the Biden repeat. Sorry, Democrats. Sorry, Republicans. Like, I'm done with it. Like, I think we need some new leadership on the immigration side of things in terms of really somebody who understands that we need to meet in the middle, right? Like I think we do need border enforcement, but we also do need common sense immigration solutions because we do have people, I mean a lot of people here in this country who have family and are ingrained in our society who have helped build up, our country. I mean, I have clients who've been here 20, 30 years, not getting in trouble, raising their families, and have no way to get their residency. And
And
there is this growing, gap. Like we are making it easier for people to come in and immediately get work permits, immediately get, their documents. While I have this subsection of my clients who have been here a really long time, doing all the right things, have kids, have educated kids, and yet they're being offered zero, which I think is why the Biden administration is starting to hear a growing like chorus of like, hey, what about us? Like we've already been here, we've already been contributing to this country and doing a lot for this country, and yet we get nothing. And so, yeah, I mean, I can't say that I'm too happy about, a repeat of either administration. I think if the Trump administration comes in, we're going to see, unfortunately, some of the rhetoric that I've seen coming from, I believe it's Stephen Miller, who headed up the immigration policy under Trump, has only grown worse and worse. And so, that's if you have somebody who's way out here and somebody who's way out here, how are we going to end up here, people? Like, how are we going to end up here? I mean, I think we're not going to get it from our presidential people at this point. Like, I'm sorry, we're not. Maybe I would hope, but I just don't see it. So I think it's going to actually have to come down to the senators and our representatives in Congress to finally put an end to this, logjam. So hopefully, once this election is over, everybody will decide, okay, we're done making a mess of our country. Let's come together and actually do something. But I mean, those are just kind of our views on things, just from the inside out. I'm not, it's not lost on me. And I don't think people really fully realize that we've had a broken system for a long time. Like it's been broken for a long time. It's just now really, really broken. Like it's apparent to everybody. But I also don't think like we're the only country, right? Like when I start to look at Europe and I start to see, there are like we're seeing growing trends of mass migration out of other countries. I mean, Europe is dealing with the same thing. And so what do we do about that? Right. But if we don't have the conversations and we're not willing to come to the table and make, common sense decisions, all we're ever going to be is a country divided, and a country divided, by the way, we're not getting anything done. Okay. So we're going to end this on, I think we're going to go back to our 1996. Like, okay, Vettel, when are you projecting that the Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl again? And maybe that'll be the year we get some new immigration laws, right?
Right?
Is it going to be this year? Is it going to be this year?
Honestly, I mean, I'm a diehard fan, so I would hope and pray that it would be this year. But if I'm being honest, I don't think it'll be this year. Actually, I believe this may be a building year. So I would hope so within the next 2 to 4 years. I mean, at this point, who knows? But I would hope in at least 2 years.
All right.
But I need to be realistic.
So I was actually asking her that question because I was going to base our answer for when are we going to get some immigration changes on Bettel's
Oh,
answers. So, I'm going to have to say the same thing. I would hope it's going to be this year, but I think this is a building year. Like,
oh,
I think with the election, like, I don't know where when that's going to happen. I've been hopeful so many times, much like the Dallas Cowboys fans. It's going to happen this year. I see it. We're so close. We're in the playoffs. Like we've seen the Senators come together. They're like, "Oh, we're going to make a deal," and then somebody dashes in and just kills all of our dreams, right? So that's our prediction. The Cowboys, maybe when the Cowboys get another Super Bowl, we're going to get some immigration reform, some changes. Stay tuned. We're going to be posting every month, maybe sometimes more if we can get our act together. But we are actually practicing immigration lawyers too.
yes.
Like we're not just sitting around on social media all day doing our makeup or our hair. We're actually practicing every day. So, but we do want to like have some fun and really get some real immigration talk out there, and some just unfiltered looks at what immigration really looks like. And then we'll just kind of, so if you have any questions that you would like us to cover or any topics that you're interested about immigration, please let us know. I think one of the fun topics I want to cover soon is just like, we have all these digital nomads, right? Like we're all over the world now, right? Like, how does that affect, like, oh, I'm going to, um, Costa Rica, or I'm in Argentina, or I'm in Europe. And by the way, I met the person that I fell in love with. And now, I want to see about getting them a visa or having them come visit my family. Like, what does that look like? And so, I think, again, remember going back to our 1996, there weren't that many digital nomads in 1996, people. So our immigration laws don't really contemplate that. So stay tuned. I think that'll be a good discussion. So if you're watching on YouTube, you can leave your comments below, or you can email us at arroyolawsocial@gmail.com. And like I said, we'll try to cover some interesting topics. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're interested, just follow us on whatever platform you're on, suggest it to your friends. Don't just listen to what the news is saying about immigration. We're going to be hopefully sharing some fun facts and just kind of talking real immigration.
Thank you for watching.